Yeah, I want to tell you guys something really important. I'm really sick here in a really complex medical situation. But if you have, if you can't figure out what's wrong with your health, you're having breathing issues, you're on different medications, long-term anti-anxiety medications, sleeping pills, maybe you have asthma too, and you're having breathing issues long-term, and you're not getting diagnosed, and you're not getting answers. I'll tell you what happened to me. And the medications were definitely a problem. This story has nothing to do with my sleep, well, my ongoing issue that I'm still trying to get surgery for. Well, it does, but this is just an offshoot story that I want to give you information about. So I was on all these medications, struggling to breathe, and my sleep issues were being misdiagnosed as anxiety or depression or PTSD. And as time went on, they were putting me on more and more medications. And then, I'd have difficulty breathing. And they'd say, oh, well, it's your asthma. And they would give me, try out different inhalers and another inhaler and another inhaler. Well, that wasn't working. I knew it wasn't asthma. And I was saying to them, this isn't asthma. If this was asthma, the Ventolin would bring me relief. Like there's something going on here. I didn't understand it was the medications. This went on and on for years. And to the point where I started telling them, I get into bed and I can't breathe anymore. There's something wrong with me. Like, there's something seriously wrong with me. My body does not want to breathe. No, nobody had any answers, or nobody wanted to say anything, or nobody wanted to speak the truth. Anyways, in the end, fighting to survive, literally. I no longer slept, struggling to breathe, all sorts of undiagnosed issues. What I finally figured out, okay, the only solution I had left to try to get myself help and proper diagnosis was to start to wean off the medications. No doctor was on board with that. In fact, the main prescribing doctor, when I first mentioned that I wanted to get off of all the medications to see if they were harming me and also to try to obtain proper diagnosis, when I suggested that, they told me I had to be on these medications for the rest of my life, and if I weaned off these medications I would probably die. I was mortified, and I thought that was a crock of you know what, and I persisted, and I wanted this doctor to help me wean off of everything. She fired me, she discharged me from care, and she threatened me. She wanted me out of her sight and to never come back. I'm dumbfounded. I'm standing on the street. I'm on, a dozen medications. I'm dumbfounded. Like, what is even going on? And the point is that unbeknownst to me, I was so medicated I couldn't figure out what was going on. I really couldn't figure out what was happening. Anyways, I persisted and persisted. No doctor wanted to do this. So I gradually and eventually weaned off of everything. It took years. And I was almost killed in the process of weaning off of everything. I was in respiratory failure, severe sleep apnea. But I'll tell you what was happening with all those medications for years. What they would not diagnose was medication-related respiratory depression. My body didn't want to breathe because of all the medications they had me on. All the sedatives, all the sleeping pills, the anti-anxiety medication, other things like GABA penton. I don't know if we're allowed to mention words like that on here. Gosh, it's so slippery. Gotta wait for this car to pass. So yeah, that's absolutely, for sure. drug-induced respiratory depression, drug-induced hypoventilation, severe sleep apnea. I was retaining carbon dioxide, not just from sleep apnea that was also undiagnosed and misdiagnosed, but from medication-induced respiratory depression. Now, here's another thing I want to tell you. So every doctor refused to diagnose this. They refused to measure my breaths per minute. I think nobody wanted to confirm. Nobody wanted to diagnose what was actually happening. Nobody wanted to face reality. But here's another thing I want to tell you. There's this huge misconception that you just wean off the medications and you're going to be fine. Well, I'll tell you, it's been 8 years. 8 years. And maybe 6 to 8 months ago, I could first take my first deep breath. And that was only maybe once every 2 months I could take a deep breath. And now I finally can say I can take a deep breath anytime now. I feel like the respiratory depression is healing right now, like almost healed. And it took 8 years post weaning off of the medication, 8 years to where I can take deep breaths at night and breathe. I still got apnea, I still got oxygen issues at night, but I really feel like this respiratory depression is healing now at 8 years. And nobody would diagnose this. There's no documentation of this in my medical records. But because doctors don't want to talk about or acknowledge or diagnose drug-induced disorders. And you don't have to treat what you refuse to acknowledge. Respiratory depression from medications is actually happening at the brain level. Your brain is the activity in your brain is being suppressed or depressed, and your brain is supposed to trigger your lungs and diaphragm and everything to breathe, so your body can, maintain its breath throughout the night. So respiratory depression from medications is actually happening at the brain level. And your brain doesn't want to make you breathe anymore, or your breathing is really slow, shallow, and insufficient. So watch out for that with people, because they absolutely refuse to diagnose mine. Mine got so bad that there were times I was breathing 3 times a minute, 4 times a minute. I would stop breathing awake during the day. So I just thought I'd put that information out there.